By the time my sister flipped my laptop around the Thanksgiving table, I already knew what would hurt the most. It wouldn't be the number on the screen. It wouldn't be the gasps or the silence or the way forks froze halfway to mouths. It would be what didn't happen afterward. No one said they were proud. No one asked how I'd done it. They skipped straight to what I owed them. My name is Sarah. I'm in my late 30s. I'm the older sister. And for most of my life, I was the extra variable my parents managed around. Rachel, my younger sister, was born premature. Very premature. She spent weeks in the hospital, wrapped in tubes and alarms, and when she finally came home, the house came with rules. No germs, no sudden changes, no risks. Somehow, I became the biggest one. The first time I remember being sent away, I was 7. I'd woken up with a scratchy throat, not a fever, not even a cough, just enough that my mom paused in the doorway and squinted at me. "Open your mouth." I did. She sighed, already reaching for her phone. Better not chance it. Rachel was asleep in her crib, pink and peaceful. My overnight bag came out from under my bed like it had been waiting. That was how it worked after that. If Rachel so much as sneezed, the house went into lockdown. Windows shut. Disinfectant wipes everywhere. My parents hovering. If I showed any sign of illness, or sometimes just tiredness, I was packed up and sent to my aunt's or my grandmother's. "You're older," my mom would say, smoothing my hair while holding my jacket. "You understand." And I did. I understood that Rachel stayed and I rotated. By the time I was 10, I could predict it. I knew which drawer my socks were in at my aunt's house. I knew the smell of my grandmother's laundry detergent better than my own. I also knew that whatever happened, it wouldn't be about me. 3 moments that made it clear. There were dozens, but 3 still sting. First, I won a district spelling bee in 4th grade. My certificate sat on the kitchen counter for a week. No one mentioned it. That Saturday, Rachel finished 7th at a swim meet. We went out to dinner. My certificate ended up folded into a grocery bag and thrown out. Second, I broke my wrist in middle school after falling off my bike. My dad dropped me at urgent care with a paperback and said, "Call when you're done. Rachel needs to nap." I learned how to check myself in and out before I learned algebra. Third, on my 16th birthday, no one said anything all day. At dinner, Rachel looked up from her plate and said, "Isn't today something?" My mom froze. "Oh, that's right. We'll do something next weekend." Rachel got a car that year. I got a rain check that never came. Teen years, becoming quietly capable by high school, I stopped expecting help. I joined debate because it didn't require rides. I studied late because no one noticed anyway. Perfect SAT score, scholarships lined up. When I told my parents, my mom nodded while rinsing a plate. "That's great, honey. Just keep your voice down. Rachel's resting." Rachel failed algebra twice. Each time we celebrated when she passed it the 3rd try. "She's trying so hard," my parents said. So was I, just more quietly. College leaving without a send-off. I got into a top-tier school out of state on a full scholarship. Move-in day came. My parents didn't. Rachel had a dentist appointment that couldn't be moved. My aunt drove me instead. She hugged me too long in the dorm parking lot and slipped a folded bill into my hand like I was still a kid. My grandmother sent letters, real ones, handwritten. "We're proud of you," she wrote. Every time. That was enough to keep me going. College taught me something important. Support doesn't always come from the people who raised you. Early career finding what I'm good at. After graduation, I fell into jewelry and antique authentication almost by accident. I was temping at a small firm, cataloging estate pieces. Most people saw objects. I saw inconsistencies. Gold alloys that didn't match the era. Engravings made with tools that didn't exist yet. Wear patterns that told the truth even when paperwork didn't. One afternoon, I pulled a necklace labeled costume from a tray. Something felt wrong. I stayed late, researched it myself. It wasn't costume. It was rare, museum grade. When it sold for 7 figures, my boss stopped double-checking my work. Other firms started calling. Growth, quiet, and relentless. I studied constantly. Certifications, provenance databases, auction records. I learned who to call, who to avoid, and when to walk away. Eventually, I opened my own firm. One room above a restaurant, a folding table, a printer that jammed constantly. I worked 14-hour days. For 2 years, I barely broke even. Then the phone didn't stop ringing. Collectors, auction houses, private estates. I opened a second office, then a third. By my mid-30s, I authenticated pieces worth more than entire buildings. My family thought I worked at a small antique shop. I never corrected them. Old habits die hard. The call came on a Tuesday night. My mom sounded tired. Not panicked, just worn. "Things are tight," she said. "We're juggling a lot." Medical bills, she explained. A loan. Rachel needing help again. "She's under so much stress," my mom said. "You know how sensitive she is." I said I understood. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Then I called my bank. I set up an anonymous monthly transfer, $5,000. The banker asked if I wanted my name attached. "No," I said, "anonymous." It felt safer that way. I didn't tell anyone. I told myself it was temporary. 2 weeks later, my mom called again. "Whoever that was," she said, voice thick, "they're an angel." That same weekend, Rachel posted photos online. New designer bag, weekend spa trip. Caption, self-care matters. When I asked my mom about it later, she said, "Rachel deserves something nice. She's been under so much pressure." Money was tight, except when it wasn't. The transfers grow 5,000 became 7. Every time my parents thanked the mystery donor, Rachel took partial credit. "I've been helping where I can," she told relatives. I didn't correct her. It was easier to stay quiet than to explain everything. Thanksgiving setup, the assumptions, grr. A week before Thanksgiving, my mom called. "My back is killing me," she said. "I don't think I can host." I offered to cater. There was a pause. "That's expensive." "I've been saving," I said. By the next day, I heard from 3 relatives who wanted to make sure I wasn't overextending myself. My mom told everyone I might be taking out a loan. "She's always been responsible," she said, "almost too responsible." Even when I paid, they assumed sacrifice, not success. Thanksgiving Day, setting the room. The house smelled like rosemary and roasted garlic when I arrived. The catered trays were lined up carefully like they might bite. 20 people filled the dining room. Plates clinked. Wine poured. The food was excellent, quietly expensive. People noticed. "This is really good," my uncle said. Rachel smirked. "Guess the antique shop's booming." I smiled and kept eating. After dessert, I slipped into my old bedroom. Same floral curtains, same dent in the wall from my childhood desk. I opened my laptop to check work. Hong Kong auction tabs, contracts, account balance, $12.4 million. The door opened. Rachel. She didn't knock. "What's that?" she asked, already reaching. "Rachel, don't." Too late. She took the laptop and walked straight into the dining room. "Everyone needs to see this." She flipped the screen. Silence. Forks paused, glasses hovered. My mom whispered, "Is that yours?" For about 60 seconds after the screen flipped, no one spoke. It wasn't the stunned silence you see in movies. No gasps, no dramatic reactions. It was quieter than that. Heavy, like everyone was doing math in their heads. My dad squinted at the screen, leaning forward as if proximity would change the number. My aunt set her fork down carefully, like she was afraid of making noise. Rachel was breathing fast, short little inhales, like she'd just finished running. My mom was the first to speak. That's not real, right?" she said. Not to me, to the room. "It is," I said. "How long?" my dad asked. "A while." Rachel laughed once, sharp and brittle. "So you just let us struggle?" Before I could answer, my uncle tried to mediate. He raised both hands slightly, palms out. Okay, he said, forcing a smile. "Let's all just take a breath. This is a lot. Maybe we talk about this calmly." Rachel turned on him. "Calmly?" she said. "She's been lying to us." "I wasn't lying," I said. "I just wasn't sharing." My mom stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "All those times," she said, voice rising. "All those times we worried about money and you just sat there?" I opened my mouth to answer, and Rachel cut in. "And I'm over here trying to figure out my future," she said, tears spilling now. "And you're sitting on millions?" Then she said the line that landed hardest. "I guess some people only care about themselves." That one stung, not because it was true, but because it was so casually cruel. That was the moment I realized the conversation wasn't about understanding. It was about access. I didn't raise my voice. I stood and spoke slowly like I was reading a list out loud. I talked about missed birthdays, about scholarships no one came to see, about loans taken out for Rachel while I worked 3 jobs. "I didn't owe you my success," I said, "and I didn't owe you my silence." My dad shook his head. "Family doesn't work like that." I picked up my purse and laptop. As I walked toward the door, I heard Rachel say, not even quietly, "So if she has 12 million, too isn't that much." No one corrected her. I drove home in silence, hands tight on the steering wheel. At a red light, my phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had 12 missed calls. I didn't answer that night. The next morning, I listened to the first voicemail. "Sarah, it's your mother. I don't know what happened last night, but this isn't how adults handle things. We raised you better than this. Call me back so we can discuss what you're going to do to fix this." At 9:17 a.m., the family group chat lit up. Here's how it went, word for word, timestamps included. 9:17, Mom, "We need to talk as a family." 9:18, Dad, "The secrecy hurt everyone." 9:19, Rachel, "I can't believe you embarrassed me like that." 9:21, Aunt, "Maybe everyone just needs time to cool off." 9:22, Rachel, "Time doesn't fix selfishness." 9:24, Mom, "Rachel has always needed more support." 9:26, Dad, "You owe us honesty." 9:28, Rachel, "I've already researched MBA programs." 9:30, Mom, "Beach houses are cheaper this time of year." I muted the chat. That afternoon, my cousin called. We hadn't spoken in years. "I just wanted to check in," she said, voice syrupy. "Your mom is really upset." "I imagine," I said. "She feels like you're punishing the family." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm just not paying." There was a pause. "Well," she said carefully, "if you really have that much, I don't see why helping more would hurt." "That's exactly the problem," I said. She didn't call again. Within 48 hours, the story had changed. It wasn't, "Did you really have that much?" It was, "How much are you giving?" 2 weeks later, my receptionist buzzed me. "Sarah," she said quietly, "your parents and sister are here." "Do they have an appointment?" "No." "Then tell them I'm unavailable." There was a pause. "They're walking past me." I stood just as my office door opened. Rachel sat down first, like she owned the chair. My mom smiled tightly. "We just want to talk." "I told you to call first," I said. Rachel crossed her arms. "We've been doing some planning," she said. "I'll need a trust fund. 2 million should cover tuition and living expenses." My dad nodded. "And your mother and I need to think about retirement." I stared at them. "I've been sending $7,000 a month," I said. Rachel laughed. "That's nothing," she said, "compared to what you have." I opened my laptop, canceled the transfer. My receptionist knocked once and opened the door. "Security is on the way," she said calmly. My mom stood up. "You wouldn't do this to family." "I already have," I said. Security arrived, 2 guards, professional and quiet. As they were escorted out, Rachel said, "You'll regret this." The security supervisor later emailed me the incident log. Unauthorized visitors refused to leave. Removed without incident. Names added to do not admit list. The money stopped. So did the unannounced visits. They tried new numbers, new emails. So I hired a lawyer. The cease and desist was polite, clinical. It stated that further contact would be considered harassment, that financial demands were unwelcome, that communication should go through counsel only. My mom called once more after receiving it. I didn't answer. That night, my grandmother called. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I should have said it sooner." That mattered. 6 months later, I moved. New place, better security. My business is thriving. Rachel tried to start her own authentication firm. It closed within a year. The last thing I heard was that she tells people she never wanted my money. I believe her. She wanted control. For the first time in my life, I feel light. No guilt, no noise, just peace. So who was wrong here? What would you have done?